Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Brownie from the Young Zings, and today I have a very special video. You usually see my face on you, that's because I have a very special video for you all today. Today we're going over the 2015 year in review, a little special. It's my little synopsis or end of view, like review in the whole year in itself. And for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, it was a pretty crazy year. So without further ado, let's hit it. So to start, let's go over a few interesting characteristics about the year of 2015 overall. Over the course of 2015, there were 637 new cards introduced into the TCG. There were a total of 13 YCS tournaments, the highest level of tournament play that happened over the course of the year in the TCG. And the most expensive card of the year goes to the Nekroz of Brianna, who at his peak was $144 for the cheapest copy on February 18th, 2015, and that is a lot of money, and you need 3, but of course we'll get more to that later. Those are just a few neat little facts about the year, but now let's dive into the full chronological synopsis of the year. So please kick back, relax, grab a drink, and we'll look back on the year of 2015. So entering into 2015, Birdie Mist was the best deck, and Clifford and Shadal fall close behind to form like a triangular meta where each deck kind of beat each other in a rock paper, scissors sort of way, and nothing else really worked. And the January 1st ban list didn't really change much. If you remember, that list brought Honest to 2, and then banned Super Poly, and get this, they brought back Snatch Steal after being completely dormant for an entire decade. And damn, I can't remember, that was about a year ago. I still can't believe they decided to bring that card back. In January, we had the Secrets of Eternity, which unleashed the Infernoid into the game, but also reintroduced a lot of legacy support cards to bring back older decks calling Volcanics into the game. An example of this would be the Blaze Accelerator Reload, which allowed Volcanics to go like 9-0 at a certain YCS, which is very, very surprising. And at the end of January, we had the Hero Strike Structure deck, which brought Elemental Hero Shadow Mist into the game, as well as Mass Hero Darklaw, which was kind of cool because we were really expecting that deck to come out, but it like kept dodging the TCG for a long time, and it kind of pretty annoying. But nothing in January really changed due to either of those sets. It was largely the same. The Secrets of Eternity and the Hero Strike Structure deck didn't really impact the meta in a really big way, but what really impacted the meta was in February, on February 13th, we had the Secret Forces. The Secret Forces came to the TCG and introduced 3 new decks, which were the Yosenju, the Ritual Beast, and the Nekroz. And each of these decks had proved themselves in the OCG, but I'll say this, we weren't ready, okay? I mean, the Yosenju and the Ritual Beast, they're good, but Nekroz was just on a completely another level. Yeah, they were a Ritual deck, and we've never had a Tier 1 or let alone Tier 0 Ritual deck dominate the game. But this wasn't a Ritual deck. This was so much more efficient and so much more versatile that it was in a complete class of its own. And Nekroz proved to be not only the best of those 3 decks, but be the best deck out of the TCG entirely. There's also the whole issue with the rarity distribution in the Secret Forces when you had cards like Nekroz and Brionic be 1 per 5 boxes, and you know, with Nekroz being the very best deck out of the entire TCG, and you have Nekroz and Brionic being 1 per 5 boxes, a lot of people start complaining about this idea about short prints. And Brionic rose to like 150 at his peak. He kind of settled for like 120 for a while, and it was pretty justified since you need 3 and it was the best deck. It was kind of unfortunate that the whole situation happened. A lot of people were pretty upset about that whole situation. So anyway, you're trying to get 3 copies of Nekroz Brianna, you got 130, 260, 390 already flat out, and you had other cards in the set like Valkyries and Trishula, which are also short print. Deck was pretty expensive, but you know what? It really did earn its price because on the very first YCS tournament, the deck was able to compete. So the very weekend the set was released at YCS Tacoma, Nekroz ate up 22 slots out of the top 32, which was absolutely crazy. March came around and Nekroz continued to reign supreme on a regional and ARG level. The next major TCG release was Premium Gold 2, which introduced the Galaxy-Eyes Dark Matter Dragon into the TCG, but also reintroduced old cards like Redestruction, Crush Card Virus, Sinister Serpent with new re-eroded effects, so they could be unbanned on the new list, which is kind of a new thing. We weren't really used to a ton of stuff being eroded on this large of a scale. While the Dark Matter deck seemed like a solid deck to combat the Nekroz Monarchy, the April 1st TCG ban list had different plans. That was completely straight up banned each of the 4 Dragon Rulers and butchered the Dark Matter deck, giving it only an 8-day lifespan between March 22nd, the release of Premium Gold 2, and the April 1st ban list. Oh well. The upper first ban list also banned Snatch It, which was being a real pain in the ass at that point. It also brought a series of hits to the top decks. We had Tour Guide, the Burning Abyss's wife, who she was put to 1. And then you also had Burning Abyss lose an arm and a leg, among other things. They had Sacrifice put to 1. They had Vanity's Emptiness and Skill Drain also put to 1, and Scout to 2. But Nekroz, with the deck as being the absolute strongest at that time, nah, you're good. We're gonna put Brio to 2, Prep to 1, and you're good, man. Keep going on your merry way. Oh well. During the next month, there were a total of 3 YCSs during the month of April. They each showed that Nekroz was going to continue to reign undeterred by the April 1st ban list. At YCS Chicago, they earned a measly 17 slots out of 32, which is, I mean, it's okay. I mean, come on guys, you could have done better. But at Bogota, Colombia, they earned 10 out of the top 16 slots. And in Bochum, Germany, they earned 21 out of the top 32. Yeah, that didn't really do much. Nekroz is still pretty dominant. Still, again, oh well. Later that same month, the World Superstars was released in April, and with it came OCG imports from OCG core sets that we've been begging to get, like Konami, Neverdisk, and Star Surf. So we had Star Surf Scepter and Star Surf Sovereignty, which was pretty cool to finally get our hands on that. But that said, also reprinted World Championship prize cards of Legendary Magician of Dark and Legendary Dragon of White. With that whole, it was actually pretty cool getting your hands on those cards for the first time, since them being World Championship prize cards, you never really thought you'd be able to have one of those copies. Yeah, they're not the same thing, but I mean, those cards are still pretty cool, so it was really awesome to get our hands on those. The month of May marked the beginning of the World Championship qualifier season, where players who had earned their invites at their regional, if they lived in the United States, or their national, if they lived in Europe or South America, they could go to their local World Championship qualifier and earn a chance to go to the World Championship, which is a pretty big deal. This is pretty much the apex of the competitive scene in the TCG. On the eve of this season, Lacrosse Soul's booster set was finally released into the TCG during May, and it didn't really have any super big meta implications because it didn't really release any major archetypes, kind of like the Secret Forces did, which was kind of nutty. But what it did do was be able to release decent generic cards like Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit, and Galaxy Cyclone, which kind of spiced things up. So that was a pretty big deal in itself. And there was a whole fiasco where they renamed Ghost Ogre Snow Rabbit from its Yoshi name, which is Yuki Usagi, and I'm still pretty mad about that. It is a terrible rename, but it is what it is. Championship qualifier season, we started to think that Burning Abyss, the deck that had complete dominated at the beginning of the year, was kind of dead. I mean, they just straight up died to Nekroz. You had cards like Nekroz of Brionic, Nekroz of Colossus, Nekroz of Unicorn, which hated the extra deck, and the Burning Abyss needed the extra deck to thrive. And this proved to be true at the German National, where Burning Abyss only got 2 slots out of the top 64, which is terrible. And even worse, at the United Kingdom National, they got 0 slots out of the top 32 there. So Burning Abyss really was not looking good at that point. But as the format went along, we started to realize that Burning Abyss wasn't the best deck, but it was the best deck to counter the best deck. Being able to float pretty hard and withstand a lot of crazy floodgates like Mistake and Skill Drain gave Burning Abyss a huge edge, and with it they were able to snag 6 slots out of the top 32 at the 150th YCS in Columbus, Ohio. While that's small compared to the 20 that Nekroz had, it actually is pretty solid, because check this out. At the North American World Championship qualifier in Nashville, Tennessee, the top 64 was as follows. It was 35 Nekroz, 13 Burning Abyss, 7 Cleafort, 3 Ritual Beasts, 3 Shadow, 2 Saturnite, and a Hero deck. So yeah, Nekroz took most of the top slots, as we could have imagined before, but since there's so many Nekroz decks in the top cut, the BA decks can just eat them up because they had an immense advantage against Nekroz thanks to their floatability and their floodgates. It was this little small phenomenon that allowed Chase Cunningham and Noah Green, who are piling Burning Abyss, to be catapulted up to the final match in the North American World Championship qualifier. This wasn't luck, this was calculated. It's actually a pretty interesting phenomenon, really, since the idea that even though you're not playing the best deck, if you're playing the best deck to counter the best deck, you still have a pretty good chance at winning, and that's what got Noah Green to be the national champion. It goes a lot to show that there's a lot more thought process that goes into picking which deck you want and which deck you think is going to give you the best chance of winning the title of national champion. Oh, and it was also neat that Drew Winston was able to pilot a Ritual Beast deck all the way to top 8, so that was pretty cool. Out of the 2 Burning Beast decks that were able to make it to the final match, Noah Green and Chase Cunningham, Noah Green was able to completely vaporize his opponent and claim the title as North American champion. Props, man. After that, we hit the month of July. The month of July was a pretty big month on many fronts. First, we have the European World Championship qualifier, or the European Continentals, which was held in Dublin, Ireland. Then the top 64 for this event was 28 Nekroz, 16 Burning Mist, 10 Cleafort, 7 Shadow, 1 Hero, 1 Ritual Beast, and 1 Tower Knight. After that, though, we switched to a new format after the July 16th ban list finally came out. That was actually a particularly important ban list because we actually had no idea when it was coming, as the April 1st ban list didn't have an end date on it. There was this great deal of unknowing, like, when a new list would come. There's a great deal of animosity that came with it, because who knows, it could come any day. Who was supposed to know that? After many people were begging for a list for forever, on July 2nd, Konami released an article saying that the reason why they stopped having an end date on Forbidden Limited lists is because it's limited their flexibility. Whatever that means. People didn't really take that very well. They took so long that the people at Ultra Reality Games, or ARG, had decided to create their own list because of how stale and repetitive the Konami lists had created this metagame that was the same thing for months on end. And there wasn't any signs of it coming, so they just made their own list. And this sparked a great deal of controversy, with some people praising ARG for taking the initiative to create their own list, but a lot of people, you know, even kind of myself, just kind of thought the whole thing was stupid. The whole situation was stupid in itself. Why don't they just come out with a new list? While I could go on a rant about how I despise the new system of ban lists not having an end date, a new list finally did come on July 16th, but it wasn't, like, it was pretty overwhelming given the fact that we had to wait so long for it. Of note was the official ban of Jin, release of Rituals, and Laval Chain. Jin was banned I think, yeah, it was really broken in the opponent special, but probably because players were really asking them to stay even for Chain. Like, Chain was pretty broken overall, but I mean, I would argue that both those cards were banned because a lot of the players were asking them to. But they also limited 2 cards of note, the first one being Straight Strategist of the Nekroz, which was, I mean, along with Jin, was their only hits to Nekroz. I mean, the deck that had been dominating since, what, February, since, like, Valentine's Day, dominating forever. Oh no, straight to 1, yeah, it's their only hit. We know at the time that was actually, like, a really, really good hit. It was a help to bring Nekroz down a lot. But the other card they limited, which was awesome, from 0 to 1, Trishula, Dragon of the Ice. We are finally back after being banned since the Synchro era. It was actually never banned in the OCG, but it finally came here in the TCG, and everyone's very, very excited to finally be able to put that card into their deck. Trishula taking so long to come, we were starting to think it would never come at all. In July, they also announced that Minerva, the Exalted Lights, was finally going to be imported into the TCG. I was so excited about that. But there's one problem. It's a YCS prize card. So basically, it's not being imported for a very, very long time. Only for people who can drop a few grand to go pick up a copy. So, oh well. The last major event that happened in the TCG during the month of July was the announcement that the Middle East would be receiving their own branch of TCG cards, which kind of proved 2 things. One, it proved that the game was still thriving and growing, and showed the vitality of the game, but also proved that the community was growing at a very rapid rate, so much so that they were able to bring it to areas in which the TCG wasn't available before, so that was very, very good overall. The month of August brought to us the Clash of Rebellions booster set, which proved to be actually a very, very influential set. It introduced 2 new archetypes, the Ignites, and the new TCG exclusive archetype, the Cosmo, which were both battle ready. Which was very, very happy to get those cards in those sets. Clash also brought fantastic Pendulum support in the form of Arching Eccentric, Luster Pendulum the Draco Slayer and his daddy, and Ignister Promise the Blasting Draco Slayer. Those cards are actually pretty cheap when they initially came out, and then people started to realize those cards are really freaking good in Pendulum decks, and they increased in price exponentially ever since their release. Also in the Clash Rebellion set was the Before Mages, mainly Trick Clown, Damage Juggler, and Hat Tricker, which ended up being a very influential trio of common cards that would have very big impacts down the road. There was also the release of the Synchron Extreme structure into the TCG, but it didn't really have that big of an impact on the game itself, except really on a regional level. But aside from the TCG during the month of August, the WCQ season reached its climax at the World Championship in Kyoto, Japan, after being originally moved from where it was supposed to be in Seoul, South Korea. The World Championship worked under a special list that literally just combined the OCG and the TCG list into a special new list that no one had ever played before. But this list particularly favored Tower Knight and Cleafort, which didn't really have any hits when the 2 lists combined, but it severely unfavored the Nekroz deck that was completely dominating the TCG, so no one was really going to play that deck at Worlds. Or so we thought. The few people who did end up playing Nekroz at Worlds, despite having 0 Jin, 1 Brio, 1 Shrit, 1 Cycle, and 1 Unicorn, did very, very well, even one taking him all the way up to the finals of the World Championship. Tower Knights availed in your 2015 World Championship was Shinsuke Hiyama, who defeated Nekroz in the final round, who further brought the World Championship drought to the United States 1 year further. To this day, no one from the United States has won the World Championship at all. Come on, boys, let's step it up next year. Next year, I swear, we got this one. The month of September was pretty quiet overall, as we were in more of a competitive scene hiatus compared to the rest of the year. Not really much was going on. But the two major things that happened right in the middle of it. The first was the announcement of booster pack changes that were happening to the TCG. So under this new rarity system, we're now going to be getting 1 holographic card in every single pack in core booster sets, which is some pretty big news. They're also improving the rarity distributions for Ultras and Secret Rares. Ultra Rares are being moved from 4 per box, and Secrets are being moved to 2 per box. But we're also completely getting rid of Ultimate Rares and Ghost Rares for core booster sets, which is, I mean, kind of a loss. Ultra Rares aren't gone, though, at all. They're going to be able to have those in tournament packs. We have no idea when we're going to be getting Ghost Rares back, though. Dramatic changes overall with these new rarity distributions that they'll be first implemented in the high-speed riders in October, and officially as the new norm for booster packs starting in Breakers of Shadow in 2016. What happened in September was the 2015 Megatins, which reprinted a lot of the major cards from Primal Origin, Duelist Alliance, Next Challengers, and Secrets of Eternity, which were pretty good since those decks were still relevant, but also brought Elder Entity Norden into the TCG. This was insane to be played in everything. You know, Norden pretty much agreed, like he agreed with all of us that he's insane because he decided just to be played in every single deck at that time. I mean, for the most part. He didn't really get the chance to prove himself until YCS Dallas, where he was mainly used in Shadal and Nekroz, but he also gave a lot of really helpful boosts to smaller decks that could abuse Norden. YCS Dallas was 13 Nekroz, 9 Burning Mist, 3 Shadal, 2 Cosmo, 2 Performance Challenger, 1 Qliphort, 1 Ritual Beast, and 1 Inferno. And fun fact, the Inferno deck actually went 16-0 and won the entire thing. Just completely, I guess, caught everyone by surprise. But Dallas was very important because of the diversity that was in the top cut, which is more so than we've seen for the entire year. I mean, thanks to the Megatins, which made a lot of the top tier decks that were in this top cut a lot cheaper, it kind of just made the format cheaper overall because you had a lot of decks that could compete, but they're also very, very cheap thanks to the Megatins, which made the format very, very inexpensive, probably the cheapest format that we'd seen all year. October 29th, which also happened to be my birthday, they announced the new changes that would be happening to the Limited Forbidden list that came out of the blue, really. They were, to say the least, catastrophic. I'm going to go down the list of the deceased thanks to the November 9th list. Thanks to the list, you had El Shadal Construct, Evil Storm Exxon Knight, Shrit, Strategist of the Nekroz, and Apocalypse Fort Towers, all completely banned straight up. In the list of the cards that were put to 1, there was a sea of victims. They had Scout put to 1, Mathematician, Graph, Brio, Unicorn, El Shadal, Rhoda. I mean, they went after everything. They went after Ritual Beast Ulticanog. Now that's just mean. That wasn't even necessary. That was just trying to be mean at that point. Bunch of bullies. Metanuke to say the least. Unlike anything we've seen in a long time, it was obviously just their way of saying, out with the old, in with the new. About this list was, it was the ends of the World's Curse, whereby it was a 5-long-year tradition where the deck that had won Worlds would be completely slaughtered in the list that followed. This year, Tower Knights won, but they weren't directly hit by the ban list. They had Rhoda put to 1, but there were other decks like Nekroz, which were abusing Rhoda arguably a lot harder and doing a lot better with it. So Tower Knights wasn't directly hit, meaning that the World's Curse was finally a myth and was probably no longer going to happen at this point. The November 9th list was pretty significant, just the fact that it was a complete meta nuke. Again, out with the old, in with the new. Only before the November 9th list was set to come in effect, Dimension of Chaos was released into the TCG, and with it came with a fair amount of fairly influential cards. Cosmos finally rose to Tier 1 thanks to the advent of Cosmo Dark Destroyer, and Performance Pendulum became a legitimate deck thanks to the release of Performance Plush Fire and Performance Mirror Conductor. Released the Mad Spectre deck, an entire Pendulum archetype where every single monster in that archetype was unable to be targeted or destroyed by a card effect. Are you serious? I was absolutely nuts when I first read all those cards. So the meta nuke that happened on November 9th, and the support that Cosmo got in Dimension of Chaos, Cosmo was able to declare itself as the best deck in the game at that point in time. Although they earned 9 out of the top 16 slots, and that's pretty much Nekroz level, I mean, to say the least, so definitely you can consider Cosmo as the best deck at that point. It was short-lived, as the advent of the Master of Pendulum Structure deck that came to the TCG on December 4th just kind of brought the Magician Pendulums, which they went up to Kazuki and were like, nah, sit down, we got this. And that's essentially what happened. ICS since their release, but they're able to show their dominance at CCG Lille and ARG Anaheim. At CCG Lille, they're able to take 14 out of the top 16 slots. Like 14 of the top decks in the top 16 slots played some form of Magician engine. And at ARG Anaheim, there were 10 of the top 16 that played the Magicians. Magician brought again another radical change to the TCG in just the span of a few weeks, and serves as a very jagged way to end the year, and sort of a weird note. 2015 was a very interesting year because of the three formats that characterize it. At first, you had the Burning Abyss format, which exemplified the year that had come before this one, 2015 more the end of it. But then that was completely washed away with Nekroz, which had a 9-month reign in the TCG. Yes, a ritual deck ruled the TCG for 9 months. Just kidding. Ritual deck. As we approached the end of the year, Nekroz and the rest of the Duelist Alliance decks were absolutely, completely, and totally slaughtered. Those momentarily took charge of the format and became the best deck until they were forcibly pushed aside by the Magician Pendulum and 4-Mage Pendulum decks, and it kind of showed as a precedent of what's to come. A few moments in 2015 showed that we're moving into the Pendulum age of Yu-Gi-Oh!, a radically new era that we've never seen before, and judging from what's to come in 2016, that's the road that we're headed. Hope you all enjoyed my end-of-year summary for the year of 2015. I personally really enjoyed this year. I hope you all felt the same. I'd like to know what you guys think. So go ahead and take time if you'd like to answer some of the following questions I'm going to pose to you right now. My first question is, what was your favorite card that was released this year? Or, your least favorite? What was your favorite deck that was played this year? Or at least, it doesn't have to be released this year, it just has to be relevant this year. Also, what was your favorite set or product that was released or that you bought? Also, did you go to any events this year? If so, which one was your favorite? And finally, and probably the most interesting question is, what was the most influential card of the year in your opinion? If you could pick one card and one card only just to sum up the year entirely, what card would that be? That's kind of a tough question for me. I'm not really sure, but I bet you could find the answer over on my channel. So please click the link in the annotation, go see some of my personal responses to all these questions and more. Thank you guys very much for watching, and a special thanks to Team APS for giving us the opportunity to upload this video onto their channel. I had a lot of fun going about it. If you guys notice, I talk a lot more about the competitive side of the game, but that's pretty much my field of expertise. That's the field that I'm most interested in. So if you guys are interested in the competitive side of the game more so than just, the casual side, go and check out the Young Zings, where we specialize in competitive duels, competitive discussions, competitive deck profiles, all that funny jazz kind of stuff. We upload pretty much daily, so please subscribe to the Young Zings for your daily dose of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you all next time.